So in this video, I'm going to be talking about building a blueprint. So in the same way that if you had a piece of land and you wanted to beautify it, you would want to make some sort of a plan or have some sort of a blueprint. Your mind and consequently your life sort of works the same way, right? You build out a plan for the way that you want your life and your thoughts and your interactions to look, and then using that blueprint, you can sort of execute and get closer and closer and continue making progress. Now, we'll talk a little bit about taking action a little bit later, but for now, the focus is on sort of that vision, right? Having a clear idea of what it is that you want to see out of your life. Because if you don't have this, it's the same as if you had a landscape, right? And you didn't really know what you wanted to do. You might sort of haphazardly work on projects like, oh, over here, maybe I'll start a garden. Over here, I'll do a couple renovations. I'll add a shed over here. But if you don't have sort of an overarching vision, you're very likely to end up with something that's sort of cobbled together. Your mind sort of works similarly, right? Where if we don't have an overarching vision or a blueprint, we may find ourselves working on certain projects, working on certain aspects of our lives without really having a coherent picture in the way that it all fits together. Now, for some people, this can work out, right? But in the majority of cases, it's not necessarily efficient or optimized, or things can get left out. Just in the same way as if you had a piece of land and you're just kind of sort of haphazardly fixing things up, certain pieces might get left behind or might not really fit with the theme overall. So when you're creating a blueprint for your mind, there's a couple different things that you want to focus on. And the first one that's really important is values. Now, the reason that you want to have a good grasp of your values is because those are the things that are going to be most likely to derive happiness for you in the realm of purpose, right? Many people sort of try to derive happiness without understanding their values, and they end up taking all kinds of actions that aren't necessarily aligned with what they really care about. So let me give you an example. If one of your values is actually health, but you find yourself constantly drinking and eating out, you're going to realize that while those things may produce some short-term pleasure, overall, they're not creating happiness. Now, in the same vein, if there is a value that you have that's not happiness, that actually has you, going out and living a lifestyle where you're doing all these things and health is not a high priority for you, then you may not need to align your actions with that to optimize happiness. Now, there are some other arguments for health and how to optimize your life overall, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about in this moment, right? So by values, it's just about figuring out what it is that's most important to you. And a lot of times this is weighing certain values against each other. That's one of the best ways to sort of figure out what values are most important to you, because obviously, all values fall in relatively a positive bucket. So there are exercises and things that you can do to really hone in on your values and figure out what's important. Now, the thing to pair that with is that these values can be attached to projects and goals that elucidate the value, right? So for example, if the value is health, you can attach it to a goal of making sure you eat a leafy green every day, right? By combining those two things, you sort of have this blueprint for, okay, here is the value, here is the thing that makes me happy or feel good or positive or creates purpose for me, and then here is the way that I can actually fulfill that. Now, the reason that it's so important to have values and not just goals is because goals can be blocked by external factors and values can continuously produce goals. By that I mean, let's say that your goal is to lose 50 pounds. It is possible that something could come up in some way that prevents you from having that goal. Actually, let me change the example a little bit. Let's say your goal is to break a world record on high jump, right? And then you end up having to get both your legs amputated. Well, now that goal is no longer possible. But if your values exist, right? If you have a value that says you value pushing your boundaries or physical fitness or something like that, you can change your goal to fit the new circumstances. That's why it's so critical that you don't just have goals, because if you're only relying on goals, you may find that you are potentially not able to meet them, or once you do meet them, you have nothing to continue to look forward to. So again, if we're going, from a landscape point of view, then you're going to want to have sort of this vision and a number of projects and a number of ways that you can bring that vision to life, right? So like if you were going to build a garden, you might not want to say, hey, you know what I really want to do is plant tomatoes, but stay focused on that higher level strategic piece, right? That value sort of piece of like, I would like a garden. Now, maybe in this environment I can grow carrots and maybe in this one I can't. The specific details are a little bit less important, but having the value gives you the space to enact your goals in a number of different ways. And we're going to talk a little bit later on how to sort of get your goals done. But at this point, it's really important to focus on sort of what are your values and what is it that you genuinely care about. So I hope that helps you understand sort of what a blueprint is and why it's necessary for sort of optimizing happiness. That's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please take a second to subscribe, as it really helps out a lot. If you're looking for more content, there's all sorts of information over at howtohappy.com. And if you want something a little bit more condensed and concise, I've also written the book Mindscaping, which is essentially a framework for optimizing happiness. So we'll have the link there as well. And that's all I've got. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.